Good morning, everyone. Now the sun has just come up above the trees. It's been out for a while, but in the forest you don't see the sun until it's above the trees. And I'm still looking at it through the trees right now, so it's intermittent. It's a good day. I know it's going to be a good day. I've already got my coffee. I just finished some banana bread. On a scale of 1 to 10, it was probably a 6 or 7. You can make really good banana bread. Or you can make the standard flavored banana bread you get in the market sometimes. I just felt like having some. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. Cooking with Jesus, I guess. If you cook, chances are you follow a recipe. Now, is there a recipe for frying an egg and bacon? No, your mother probably showed you, but technically there is a recipe for that. It's a very simple meal, but there is a recipe. More advanced meals, you might have a cookbook. So, why am I talking about this? Well, the Bible is our spiritual cookbook. And it talks about all the things that go into making us good people. Children of God, examples for God to show the world. That's what the chosen people were supposed to do. To show the world what it's like to be one with God. Now, instead, they kept getting the world into them, and it doesn't work. But Jesus is the bread of life, and we're the salt of the earth. So we can see there are plenty of examples. And how did, we have countless stories in the Bible, from being fed by manna to feeding 5,000 with bread and fish, to throwing a net out and pulling in so many fish that they couldn't bring them all in. And Jesus already had a fire made for them so they could cook the fish. Food's an important thing to us. Our bodies need food. But we need to have good food. Okay. One of the things about a cookbook is you follow the recipe unless you've learned where you can modify it. And you might write in the margins or right above where you're going to modify it if it's something you're going to cook on a regular basis. Once you get good at cooking, it's sort of like painting or creating anything. You can learn to use the tools differently. But until you do, the book is there. Now, when I say differently, you don't use the Bible differently, but you may have a different approach that God gives you. A different recipe that maybe isn't covered exactly the way it is. Sometimes you put things together in pairs that maybe aren't in the Bible in pairs, but they work because they work individually. God can do that. Don't you do that. You start messing with recipes and you don't know what you're doing, you're going to end up with another denomination. Yeah. And if you leave a key ingredient out, what have you got? I said key ingredient. You're going to have a bad meal that's going to go in the trash or get thrown out to the dogs. The same thing goes with Scripture. If you leave a bad recipe out, item out. So what are we going to do? What can we eat? Genesis 9:3. Every moving thing that lives shall be food for you. And as I give you the green plants, I give you everything. Yeah, I know. Later on it talks about food they can't eat. We get that out of Leviticus. But there were 2 reasons that they had a dietary restriction. One, they had to be set apart. They had to be different. If you found somebody that, you're not going to go and look to see if somebody's circumcised, so what else could you do? If they won't eat a certain food, then you know they're part of that group. And now that we're scientifically mature, we know that a lot of the things that you would eat back then would be bad for you. Pork is one of the first things to go bad in heat, and they didn't have refrigeration. Trichinosis can be deadly, so they were told not to eat pork. And some of the other animals, you had to have the cloven hoof and, chewing the cud and all that kind of stuff. The rules are there, but they were there for healthy rules. You can't eat shellfish because shellfish are the bottom feeders of the ocean. They eat all the garbage that falls to the bottom. So they can have bad things in them. They're usually high in lead and mercury and other toxic things that you shouldn't be eating. Local fish that live in bad waters, you shouldn't eat. I've talked about this before. I used to love to fish off the piers out in California. You'd catch everything, but you'd throw back local fish. I took a local fish home one time. This is off of Southern California. I took it home one time and cut it open, and it was black inside from the pollution. If you can catch like a bonita or something swimming by, they're migratory, those are good to eat. You take it home and eat it. Okay. So there are rules defining what we can eat and what we can't. Individually, we may have separate rules. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I have my own rules. Okay, so we already talked about this. I've got all this written down, but I'm just wanting to run with this. Fire was often used to cook with. One, it imparts a flavor on the food, especially when you're cooking fatty foods. That adds a flavor. You don't want completely lean meat. Now, it may be completely lean when it hits your plate, but you want to start it off with some marbling in the meat because that fat burns off and gives the flavor to the meat. Some may say, well, that also adds carcinogens. Everything adds carcinogens to this world. Our body, I think early on, this is my anecdotal information, our body can fight cancer most of the time until something breaks down in the immune system, and then it can no longer do that. Okay, so fire's been around for a long time. We don't know when it was invented, but pictures of cavemen with fires. So it's been around for a long time. So your barbecue in the backyard is not new. It's just got a nice pretty box to put it in. It purifies as well while it cooks. If you get meat up to a certain temperature, or any food up to a certain temperature, it kills the pathogens that are in it. By the way, if the smoke detector goes off, your food is done. Psalm 34:8. O taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man who takes refuge in him. A cookbook parallel. People understand food. They don't understand God, but if you can compare the two, we can find the commonality. We can find the true meaning. What do we got back there? Are those fish or birds? I can't see. Something splashing in the water. Might be fish. Somebody coming in. Okay. Romans 14, verse 1. As for the one who is weak in faith, welcome him, but not to quarrel over opinions. One person believes he may eat anything, while a weak person only eats vegetables. It's in the Bible, people. If you're a vegetarian, you might be a weak person. Be careful. God gave us everything to eat. And we find from Peter and his vision of food, even the things that are on the list that you can't eat, everybody can eat if you want to. Let not the one who eats despise the one who abstains, and let not the one who abstains pass judgment on the one who eats, for God has welcomed him. Who are you to pass judgment on a servant of another? It is before his own master that he stands or falls. He will be upheld, for the Lord is able to make him stand. So if somebody doesn't, I was jokingly talking about the vegetarians. I have tried that diet. I've tried everything, I just don't feel satisfied eating nothing but vegetables. Protein, we need protein. So, the Bible is like a cookbook, and Jesus is like a good meal. John 6:35, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall not thirst. We know of all the times that Jesus was involved with food. He'd go have a meal with the tax collectors. He distributed food miraculously from the loaves and fishes. He turned water into wine. John 6:27, do not work for food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. For on him God the Father has set his seal. The Last Supper. It's a supper. It's for food. Food is important. We need it to nourish our bodies. The Bible is important. We need it to nourish our souls. Now, we have to have variety. When they had nothing but manna, they were nourished, but they didn't like it. It was boring, the same food every day. At home, your mother may fix a different meal each day of the week, but Wednesday was spaghetti night, pork chops on Thursday. Whatever it was, there would be a different meal. Now, there might be a variation on the weekend, but pretty much every week was the same thing because it was easy to plan for. When they got manna every day, they eventually complained and needed meat. And they got quail. God provided. They're never satisfied, but he did provide what they wanted. Satan knows our desires and what we want. I got the ranger coming by. I'm back, and I got to feed my friends out here. The geese are right outside the tent. You've seen them enough. You can hear the crows over there. Nature all around. So Satan knows what we know as far as what we can eat and what we can't. And he tempts us with things that we shouldn't. Bill Gates, who's a vegetarian, and he doesn't look healthy. He's buying up farmland and cattle properties to keep us from eating things that he doesn't think we should eat. Yeah, warm place for hell for him someplace. Where are they? There they are. There's a family of 2 adults and 4 children, I guess. Okay, to see them I have to cut my head off, but that's all right. Now they're behind me. Oh, they're over there. Anyhow, distractions. We've had food processing plants burned to the ground, chicken coops burned to the ground. Chicken are always getting some kind of bird flu. All birds have flu, especially ducks and geese. It's permanent in them. They always have influenza. But it's not harmful to man. It takes millions of iterations of their version that they carry around in them all the time to get something that's contagious to men. That's why we get it from, the flu comes from China for the most part, because of all their rice paddies that they have, and ducks and geese love rice. And there's millions of birds over there. So that's why we get that 1 in a million that can infect people. It comes from China. Revelation 3:20. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. And if anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in to him and eat with him and he with me. It was a tradition back then that if anybody, a stranger, comes to your door and knocks, you won't send him on his way without bringing him in, giving him a good meal, something to drink, before you send him on the way. It was tradition. Take care of your neighbors. Even if you don't know them, it's a good way to get to know them. It used to be that families would sit around the dinner table and talk about the things during the day. None of that anymore. They've all got their phones up and they're looking at them, and they call them smartphones, but I say they're dumb phones because they're dumbing people down. It's a nice tool. We didn't have that when I was growing up. We didn't even have a PC or a Mac when I was growing up. We had sticks and rocks to play with. Okay. One last thing about food. Fasting is actually good for the body. The body basically, when you're working out, burns the food that's in the fat that's in your blood. And if you don't fast right off after that, or if you immediately go take in some food, it will immediately grab and pull it in. It won't burn off the fat that's in your body that it's accumulated. The body has a task, and that's to keep this body alive. So it stores food supplies just in case you run out. Well, guess what? The old food tree that we used to have that had all the food types and groups on it, and you're supposed to have 3 meals a day, marketing ploys. No science behind them. That's to get you to spend more money on food. And we're one of the obesest countries in the world. And you get fast food here. You don't have to even wait for it. Now, you might have to wait 5 minutes, and it's getting to be expensive. But that may be the downfall of fast food if it doesn't knock it off. But we're eating too much in this country. We're not working out enough. We're not going out to play. We're holding our phones. We're playing games on our phones. Satan's very clever, and he's leading us down the wrong path. You got to eat right. You got a Bible right. If you want a good, normal, healthy life, you've got to do both. Now, I can say that I'm forced to eat healthy, whether I like it or not. I don't always eat healthy. I've got my cheat meals. But I know that if I eat the wrong food, I'll pay the price. I recently had my gallbladder out a few years ago. I cannot eat greasy foods. I'm in the South. Grease is a staple. Everything's fried in grease. Even if you've got biscuits and gravy, the grease should be in that gravy to make that. Bacon, I can't have bacon. I occasionally will have bacon, but what I do is I cook it till it's almost black, not quite, so there's no grease left in it. And I drain it and I soak it up with paper towels so that there's very little grease. And I can get by maybe once a week. I'm also lactose intolerant. You know, nutritionists will tell us that milk is not really what we're supposed to be living off of. As babies, yes, but later on, no. And then we come up with all these alternatives. Soy milk, which increases men's estrogen. So then they come up with almond milk, and it's not right either. All the substitutes, everything that you've got that's a substitute for something you can't eat, has its own side effects. And I also have a wheat allergy. I don't get sick from it, but it's like hay fever. If I eat bread with anything with gluten, I sneeze a lot. All right. Take care of your body. It's the temple of God. God doesn't need a lot of room down here. And take care of your mind and soul through the studying of the Bible. They go hand in hand. You have to do both. You neglect one and the other one's going to pay too. Till we meet in the clouds. God bless. The road crew. Where's the other one? There he is. Nature's garbage collectors hanging around the garbage.